In this work, we propose a distortion-guided, structure-driven, interactive framework for exploring high-dimensional data via its two-dimensional embeddings. We ask the following question: what new insights do we obtain regarding the structure of the data with interactive manipulations of its embeddings in the visual space? Now we demonstrate our pipeline via real-world datasets. The combustion simulation dataset consists of 2,800 samples of chemical compositions and temperatures extracted from a jet simulation of turbulent flames. The domain scientists are interested in understanding conditions that trigger extinction and reignition phenomena, which are indicated by points with minimal temperatures. We first apply multidimensional scaling and color the points by temperature. We can identify two areas with minimal temperature, which may correspond to extinction scenarios. In order to better understand the embedding and identify regions of interest, we visualize different point-wise distortion measures. We identify a region of interest in the upper middle area of the domain, which has high distortion across multiple distortion measures. To further explore such an area, we load pre-computed hierarchical clustering results on the given dataset. Here, we can double-click to expand the cluster at a given level. We use point-wise distortions to guide our clustering selection, where the appropriate level of clustering is chosen based on its agreement with the region of interest. We observe that the red cluster at a chosen level corresponds well with the region of interest. Here, we allow the user to move a subset of the data that belongs to the red cluster away from its neighboring clusters. We observe a drastic decrease of point-wise distortion in the area of interest under moderate movement. This indicates a certain level of structural independence between the red cluster and its neighborhood of points. Therefore, the points in the red cluster may potentially correspond to a distinct extinction phenomenon that is different from its nearby clusters. However, further data movement substantially increases the distortion measure. This indicates that the red cluster is not completely separated from the rest of the data. To further investigate these clusters, we display the summary statistics of each cluster. We notice that the difference in HO2 concentration is what distinguishes these two overlapping clusters. It turns out that the red cluster represents an independent temperature local minimum, which corresponds to a special extinction phenomenon. We can further load the topological clustering result to validate the discovery of such an additional minima. We now move to a nuclear simulation dataset used for reactor safety analysis. It simulates an accident scenario where a plane crashes into a sodium-cooled fast reactor power plant, inhibiting its cooling capabilities. A recovery crew then arrives at the site and attempts to re-establish the cooling, during which time the core temperature keeps increasing until the cooling system is fully recovered. If the reactor reaches a maximum temperature of 1000 Kelvin, the simulation is considered a system failure. Otherwise, it is a system success. An ensemble of 609 transient simulations has been generated, with each simulation consisting of a time-varying core temperature profile. We sample each profile at 100 time steps and map it to a 100-dimensional space. The domain scientists are interested in studying the structure of this dataset and understanding characteristics associated with system failures and system successes. Following our data exploration pipeline, we apply multidimensional scaling to obtain a two-dimensional embedding. After that, we look at both local stress and robust distance distortion. We could see that there is a region of interest with high distortion located in the lower part of the embedding. We then apply classical hierarchical clustering on the data. Through cluster expansion and compression, we obtain a hierarchical clustering with 4 clusters where the green cluster agrees almost perfectly with the region of interest. We move the green cluster away from the rest of the points. The distortion increases drastically. This indicates that the green cluster is structurally dependent on the rest of the data. Now we visualize the embedding with known labels of the data. Points corresponding to the success scenario are colored in purple, while failure scenarios in yellow. The previous green cluster now agrees almost perfectly with the yellow cluster, which contains all failure cases. This validates that our distortion-guided clustering selection captures some inherent structure of the data. We further investigate the local stress and robust distance distortion where 2 points are particularly visible with the highest distortions. In the corresponding parallel coordinate plot, one of the 2 points corresponds to a boundary scenario that separates the system's successes from the system failures, and the other corresponds to a limiting scenario that reaches failure temperature at the earliest simulation time. Furthermore, we now delete all the failure cases and reapply multidimensional scaling to focus the investigation on the success scenarios. Through local distortion visualizations, we can identify a point with high distortion that corresponds to a boundary scenario among the success cases. These distortion-guided observations again offer valuable information of the data.